maybe not all the people know you. Can you maybe explain or tell me or tell the audience who you are?
Okay, so for the last 30 years, I and my wife have worked together in the hospitality industry, working at some of the nicest hotels, resorts, and cities all around the world. And at the same time, we'd been coming here to Amsterdam for the Cannabis Cups. And we had developed a great passion for cannabis and learned a great deal from every great coffee shop that was here back in the 90s. That was our prime time when we were here a great deal. And we decided a few years ago, 3 years ago, to move back here and live in Amsterdam. And we ended up in a fantastic old vintage home right on the, I always say it's right in between Sodom and Gomorrah, right by the red light district and right where the coffee shops all start. And a friend came in from Canada, and he asked me, what's the best coffee shop in Amsterdam? And I said, I don't know. I can't answer that because I haven't been to them all. And then that crazy thought, oh my God, wait a second, has anybody ever been to them all? And Googled it right away. No, there was no ever record of anybody doing them all. I found out how many there were, 167. Did the math. I can do 5 coffee shops a day legally. And that's what I did. I decided I was going to set it up as a mission, almost like a military mission. And that's how I ended up with Captain Hooter, right? So set it up as a mission, 5 coffee shops a day. And I started off, I graded every coffee shop by, first of all, I did everything by the book, like a mission. So I used the same language. When I walked in, I smiled and said, hello, how are you doing today? To every single coffee shop person I saw when I went in. Just to start to break up the monotony, especially for those in the Centrum, because they're so busy. There's so many people. They don't ever talk to anybody. They're just, right? So just trying to be friendly. And went in, bought a coffee or a cappuccino, bought 1 gram of whatever their best weed was, or whatever the most expensive weed was. So I could use that as kind of a baseline, a bar. And then I smoked some while I was there. I took a photograph of it while I was there. And then I rated each coffee shop, not just because of the bud, but how friendly they were, how clean the coffee shop was, how much they cared about the customer. And I took the time to sit there and watch and observe the people and watch how they interacted with people and the differences of how they interacted in each one of the areas in Amsterdam. And there's a big difference between how people act in the Centrum as opposed to the north, south, east, or west.
In what way?
Well, in the Centrum, honestly, it's become a lot like serving hamburgers there rather than actually serving cannabis. There's so many people, and the way the whole process is going is just so fast, and there's so little actual care about how the bud is being presented. One of the things that, again, let's backtrack a little bit. I came out of California and out of Canada, where when I call for weed, I text somebody on my phone. A guy comes to my house 30 minutes later or less, faster than Domino's Pizza, and he whips out 5 bags of sativa, 5 bags of indica, 5 bags of hybrid, and then goes through it like a connoisseur, like a wine connoisseur. Okay, Dan, so this is some Blue Dream. This is an excellent sativa. It's going to be perfect for your wake and bake in the morning. It's really good in the afternoon, but don't smoke any after 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because you might have trouble going to sleep. Okay, this is, and he'll go through each one. That was what I was used to. And then, coming here and going to these coffee shops where then it was very kind of slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, for the most part, especially in the Centrum. But not, again, I don't want to generalize because it was a shock.
But the overall knowledge of what they're selling.
That was minimal, and that was one of the things that was also. I mean, again, when you go to a dispensary in California, you go to one in Canada, everybody knows everything about the bud, and everyone has a loop or a magnifying glass or something so they can show you and get down. Oh, you can see this was picked, just perfectly. All the trichromes are creamy and a little, they're so knowledgeable. It's very technical. It's very scientific. And then coming back here, it's so very not scientific anymore. And so, that was something that was interesting. When I would question people about, how much they would know later down the road, I was shocked not only by the bud tenders' lack of knowledge, but also by even management. I doubt if I put 3 buds down blindly and said, tell me which one is the indica. But again, I have 20 best of the best coffee shops that I picked out, which in all of those cases, I found the places to be very friendly, to be very, the bud to be excellent, the hash to be excellent, the camaraderie with people and being friendly to the tourists, and obviously caring. And that's the thing that's kind of a shock, and it took me a while to get used to it because, those shops that are in the Centrum, they could do a horrible job. Sell somebody garbage, and there's still going to be fresh people there the next day. There's really no motivation for them to really, really care. And because they just have such a huge flow of regular, customers coming back. And that's why it was so refreshing to find the ones that I did that, and I'll also say, in the last 6 to 8 months, I've seen a big jump and a big improvement in a lot of coffee shops, especially in the Centrum. Some have been purchased recently. If you guys know, Utopia was just had the plug from Barcelona has an affiliation there. Koi just opened up another one, which is maybe the most beautiful, one of the prettiest coffee shops in town now. If you haven't seen Koi yet, you should go take a look at it. There's locals are coming down the street and taking photographs of it just to come in and look through the window. It's a really beautiful new coffee shop.
But often they say also that the quality, I hear from coffee shop owners themselves, that the quality is getting worse.
Yeah.
And how did you notice that?
Again, there's a fundamental difference in the way weed is presented and handled in North America and here. And even in Barcelona, if you go to Barcelona now, you're going to find every coffee shop, there are cannabis clubs there, but the cannabis clubs, cannabis associations, they serve their weed out of glass. When you're in California, the weed is served out of glass jars or glass containers. Some of them make beautiful glass, they're custom pieces. It's all done out of glass. They use chopsticks, or they use gloves, or they use tongs. And when they handle the weed, they use 2 fingers, if they're using their fingers, like this. So they handle the weed like this is gold. And that is from a marketing standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a quality standpoint, a very smart thing to do. There's a coffee shop in Canada that's one of my favorite places. It's called The Pharmacy. They have a sign on the door. It says, your bud has only been touched twice. Once when it was harvested, and once when it was put into your medicine container. It's a huge plus for nobody to have touched that weed. And when I use my loop or magnifying glass and you look at the weed up there, or the weed in California under the glass, it looks like a diamond mine all over the top of the weed. After being here and after going through 167 coffee shops over and over again, I can tell you that the weed is getting just molested to death in the process of from the time that it's chopped up from the grower and it gets into the coffee shops. You go into a coffee shop and I see guys with 10 fingers attack a bud. I would like to have this bud. And they come in like this. And there's a scream inside me. It goes, ah! And I'm going to give you, if I give you one thing, and if you could pass this on to every bud tender or every coffee shop that you see, I want you to get this visualization. And I'd like to give credit to one of my mentors. His name is Max Montrose, and he's the guy who runs THC University. And he puts it this way when he talks about touching bud. He says, this is a consumable product. This is something you're putting into your body. It's like a steak. I like to think of it like a chicken. It's like a chicken. You come to my restaurant and you're going to come buy some bud/chicken from me. I'm going to show you the chicken. Isn't it a beautiful chicken? Smell it, nicely roasted. You want this chicken? And then I take my hands and I take the drumstick and put it on your plate. This drumstick. Would you like some wings? I pull them off and I tear the wings apart. And then I dig in and I give you the breast and I give you that breast. That's what it feels like to me. And I have to sit, and it's very strange. And I know that culturally And I've learned this from living here. Actually, a lot of the bud tenders are doing me a favor because they're picking the stems off so that I don't pay more for. Somehow this fundamentally got screwed up here a long time ago. This is wrong, okay? You get the growers to trim the bud better.
But is it time for coffee shops to change in that sense?
Yes, it is
How?
time. First of all, this plastic thing is insane. I don't understand why everybody is still, especially the cancer-causing plastic, the ones where you see the green in the bottom of the bin. That green stuff is mine. That belongs to me. You're using that plastic container that sucks the trichromes down and the resin down in there, and you don't get it, and I don't get it. The plastic container gets it. Okay? That's why everybody uses glass everywhere else in the world. When I was here, and I would go to coffee shops, and I would ask them, especially the ones that had the real cancer kind of ones that were caked on the bottom, and I would say, have you ever thought about glass? And in almost every case, I was told the same thing when I said, have you thought about glass? We did glass one time, but we break it. We break it. Over and over and over, I heard that again. Only here. Not in Barcelona, not in Colorado, not in California, not in Canada, not in any of the other states or any other place in the world where they all use glass do they break it. But here they break it. I don't understand this at all.
But
and
they take it from the glass and they put it into pots. Or
yes, yeah. And I've seen, and some of the new spots like Koi is doing that right now. Like I said, the plug just switched. They used to use the bad ones. They just switched over. The Dompering just switched over. I know that all of the ones at the Farmer Boys, which is, I think, one of the best chains. I think you would all agree, one of the best chains, Amsterdam Genetics. I mean, those guys are doing a top-notch job over there. And one of the comments that I even made in my book is the way they've run that organization, as far as all their coffee shops and the consistency that I found at every one of their coffee shops, if I could wave a magic wand and get rid of all those crappy ones that I saw, I would put them in charge and let them redo it. I think there's a really important part of this that I don't know if I can express this the right way, but I think about it from a tourism standpoint. You know, they say 25% of all the people that come here to Amsterdam go to a coffee shop. And I've got to tell you that a lot of the people that I saw in their first experiences with bud tenders and with coffee shops, it was frightening to see. I sat in the back of rooms and just went, my God, you can't treat people like that. You can't be disrespectful like that. And there's a lot of that, and I think that there's just a lot of people that are burnt out here right now because of the laws, because of the restrictions, because of all the gray areas that are in here. Everywhere else in the world is enjoying the entrepreneurial spirit that is taking over in the cannabis industry, and the growers and the coffee shop people and everyone here is handcuffed here. And not even, and it's scary. This place should be the Las Vegas. Right now, there's Las Vegas is the best cannabis place, I think, maybe in the States. It's booming. It's such a huge market. And by the way, let me tell you what a shop looks like there. A dispensary in Las Vegas looks like a football stadium and an Apple store with big, long, huge counters with glass everywhere. And you get your bud in a little glass crystal container, like a gram, comes in this little container. It looks like something that's so nice you would take it home and put flowers in it. And they give you that because they give out so many millions of them a day. And they have counters with all celebrity names. Whoopi Goldberg and another lady, Maya, I think, has 2 giant counters of female-only products. THC and CBD, suppositories for their menstruations, bath bombs, all kinds of strains just for women. You walk around like you're inside Hudson's Bay.
Well, what about, we had the owner, the man who started the Bulldog Hank,
Yes.
who basically came up with the name of the coffee shop.
Yes.
Is that maybe an idea, maybe to think about the name, that maybe we should change that into cannabis cafes or something like that to make it a different approach, whereby they also treat their product with respect, sort of thing?
there's so much pressure on all the coffee shops that are in the Centrum. A lot of the weed that I saw and I photographed all the way down to the trichrome level was all harvested early. That's something you see a lot here, is a lot of early harvested weed, because the growers don't want to keep growing it any longer. It's a higher possibility for them to get arrested. So they're harvesting early, plus they need the money, plus there's such a demand. I mean, the whole system is set up in such a quasi-weird, bizarre manner that leaves all these gray loopholes so that the police can pick you off. I did an interview with Hans Komperman, the gentleman who did the leave. And, you hear his kind of story, and I've heard hundreds of different stories since I've moved here. And I really, truly understand what kind of a challenge it's got to be right now to be somebody in this industry and stay motivated and stay happy and stay caring, so that you can keep it up. That's again why it was so satisfying again for me to really pick out the 20 coffee shops that I found and highlight them. And I'll just add one other thing about what I did in this book that's kind of interesting that other people haven't done before, is I also took restaurants and attractions and things that were in the area. For an example, I'll tell you one of the winners is the Stud from the East, okay? And everybody knows the Stud. One of the most fantastic coffee shops here. They also have, though, a little tiny diner that's just 2 blocks away called Chantilly's. It's one of the ladies that was in the Dutch Best Bakers competitions. She makes one of the most incredible red velvet pancakes you have ever had in your life, and eggs Benedict from the gods. It's incredible. So not only do I tell you where the coffee shops are, what to look for, what might be nice there, but I also tell you where to go to find something good for breakfast, lunch, dinner, what to do when you're there to hang out.
And the original idea of coffee shops is also to keep the people, or to get the people inside, and also as a social community or surroundings. For example, the one you just mentioned, the Boerenjongens, for example, is a takeaway.
Yes. Yep.
Don't you think it's losing, therefore, its base?
Yep. So in that particular case, if you're out in the West, there is a great little cafe that's right in between the Beige and the West. So see, when in that case, what you have to do there is, if you're going to need a smoke right away, you can roll up inside their rooms. They both have rolling areas inside both of those locations. Then they have a beach or a bench area that's right outside along the canal, which is absolutely beautiful. Perfect place to go smoke. And then if you need a bite, you can go right into that cafe, which is directly in between those two pieces. Okay. So it was about doing research, right? And I really went about this thinking about it as if somebody was coming to visit for the very first time. And I did it not just by Dutch sensibilities, but North American sensibilities. So I was a little bit more critical about some things. Again, like the touching of the bud. There's so many people, and I totally understand those of you that doesn't bother you. But for those of us who grew up around, never had that happen. It's something that's
isn't that also got to do that people in Holland are very much sort of spoiled? They got something in a shop that you could buy, right, sort of legally, right, and therefore it was there. And if you're in underground, it's more love for the plant, more love for what you're doing. Sure. Is that also maybe reason why?
I think so, but it's about passion. And again, I think a lot of people in other parts of the world right now are becoming a little bit more scientific about what they're looking at, what they're smoking. I'm starting to see more and more people that walk around with a loop like I do and look at their bud before they smoke it, so they know that there's not a hair. You would be scared to death to know how many hairs I found while I did this, and how many hairs I pulled off of buds before I smoked them. There's cleanliness issues. There's things that you don't even think about it, and maybe you don't want to know about it. Maybe if I don't know about it, it won't affect me. But what you don't know won't hurt you, right? But I think, again, part of what is encouraging is that recently, in the last 6 to 8 months, I would say, 9 months, I've seen just a nice wave of positive steps going into, something that looks a little bit more cosmetically and from a cleanliness standpoint. A lot of places have cleaned up and changed branding, like I said, and it's in paint jobs lately.
Okay.
Good stuff.
But I want to know one thing, though. You don't have to mention the name, but what's the worst? What's really the worst thing what happened to you?
Okay,
in a
so
coffee shop?
I will tell you two funny things. I'll tell you two funny stories of my worst things, okay? In one place that I went to, I went in, I did exactly the same thing I did and everything. Hi, how are you today? And the guy looked over and he went, like that. I went, okay. What's our best weed today? And of course he said, do you want to get high or do you want to get stoned? And literally sighed when he did. Do you want to get high or do you want to get stoned? He must have said that 80 billion times that day. And I said, I'm not sure. What do you think is the best bud? And he says, I don't know what I think the best bud is. Either you know what your best bud is or you don't know. Do you want to get high or do you want to get stoned? So in this one case, I changed it up. And I said to him, I want whichever one has the highest trichome count. And he took the bin and he closed it like this. And he looked at me and he says, how many languages do you speak? And I said, one. I speak English. But I have an iPhone, and with my iPhone, I can translate just about anything, but I speak one. He says, I speak 7 languages. I am not a scientist. I don't know what your thing is. And I said, trichrome. You know what a trichrome is? And he says, I don't know what a trichrome is. And I said, okay. But you sell weed, you sell cannabis. And he says, yes. And I said, are you the manager? He says, I'm the owner.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most, that was the one that really shocked me. Okay. And then I think I asked something else and he told me to get out of his store.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get a sample from that one store.
Last question. Because there was a debate earlier on about some guy, August Delors, said the end of the coffee shops is maybe coming near.
Yep.
Do you believe that as well, or do you see this as well?
God, I hope not. You know, I follow all of the markets. I've been following Canada, and you know, Canada just legalized, but there's more ways to be penalized for marijuana now in Canada than there ever was before. I had a home in Canada. I'm scared if I have to go back there. I smoke every day, so I can never drive a car again, essentially. Or I'm going to have to figure out how to make that work. I don't think I hope it's not the end of the coffee shops. I think that, again, there has to be a more focused attention into how important the interaction is of these bud tenders with the people that are coming here, especially the very first time to Amsterdam on their vacation. They have that first experience. Yeah. This first experience they have with these bud tenders is the one that they're going to remember 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And what I fear here is that we're only a couple of years away from Great Britain legalizing, maybe not. I hope so. But you see all the different countries that have legalized recently. And the more that start legalizing, the more options people have to go other places other than Amsterdam. I will finish by saying that I think this is the greatest city in the world to get high in. It's the absolute best city in the world to walk around in while you're high. It is the best city, no matter what, to meet and interact and socialize with people, unlike any other location in the world. And you can't duplicate it anywhere else except for here right now. And I love it, and I can't wait to do my next edition next year and keep going, and we'll just keep the bar going up and see if we can
Thank you very much.
Take it to the next level. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Captain Hooter.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Your source of cannabis news.